Let's check out Bitcoin, surging higher over the past week, up more than 20% following a few rough months. And guess who's come along for the ride? Business software firm Microstrategy. The stock closely tracking Bitcoin's performance as Microstrategy continues to add the crypto to its balance sheet. And the company just filed to sell up to $1 billion in stock to possibly fund even more Bitcoin purchases. So let's bring in Microstrategy CEO Michael Saylor. Michael, thanks so much for joining us here tonight on Fast Money. You're going to have to do some explaining to us. You're a business software firm. Why do you keep buying Bitcoin? 3 purchases, large purchases at least, in less than a year.
Well, first, the world's waking up to the fact that Bitcoin is digital property on an open monetary network. And that's pretty profound because it's going to spread to billions of people around the planet. It's digital gold on a big tech network. We have 2 strategies, and one of our strategies is to acquire and to hold Bitcoin. So MicroStrategy is the first company to do a Dutch auction or a share repurchase to buy Bitcoin. We're the first company to do a convertible debt offering to buy Bitcoin. Last week, we became the first company to do a senior secured debt offering to buy Bitcoin. And we put in place this $1 billion at-the-market shelf registration so that we'd have a standing program to be able to go back to the capital markets to issue equity in the future should the circumstances present themselves. And we would use that either to buy Bitcoin or to retire debt or for general corporate purposes. We have a standing share repurchase program, so we can go back and buy our own shares. We've got $200 million or more in that program. And we're pairing this $1 billion at-the-market program with that so that the company has all of its options open in the future.
It seems like you're really very involved in Bitcoin. Is this distracting from what MicroStrategy's main business is? Is this what investors really want you to be doing?
No, I think it's actually an ideal situation because our stock was trading about $120 a share with $60 a share in cash. And our investors told us the cash was trash. It was a liability on our balance sheet. And if we had given it all back, we would be trading at $60 a share. Instead, we rotated our shareholder base and transformed ourselves into a company that's able to sell enterprise software and to acquire and hold Bitcoin. And we've done it successfully with leverage. That has increased the power of the brand by a factor of 100. We just had our best software quarter in history, or in the last 10 years, last quarter. The core business is up 10%. The Bitcoin business is driving shareholder returns. I think the employees are happy. The shareholders are happy.
Michael, it's Karen. Thanks for being on our show. Let me ask you about when you did the offering for debt to potentially buy Bitcoin. How do you think about that versus issuing equity? I don't know, you're paying 6 and change percent.
When our stock was 120, we bought. Yeah, when our stock was 120, we bought back the shares at 140 to buy Bitcoin. That was accretive. And then we did a convert offering at 398, and that was accretive because our stock was 300. When our stock hit 1,000, we did a convert offering at $1,432 a share because that was accretive to all the other classes of security holders. And when our stock came back in, we saw the opportunity to do this secured debt financing. We did that because we could get the capital at 6 1/8% interest, and that's not dilutive to the equity holders, and it's not dilutive to the convert holders. So it was another major accretive financing that we could do for the benefit of all of our security holders.
Michael, one thing I've learned over the last 9 months is you're extraordinarily thoughtful in terms of how you look at your business and the things that you're implementing. And we spent the last half hour prior to you getting here talking about inflation. Kyle Bass today talked about real inflation being 12%. You've had a lot of voices on the inflation front. How do you view inflation? How does the institutional views of Bitcoin look through that lens, the lens of inflation?
I think over the past 12 months, we've all been waiting for inflation. I think we're seeing it right now. I think investors are saying that Bitcoin's up 330% and gold's up 7% in that period. So Bitcoin is outperforming gold as an inflation hedge by a factor of 50. So you're seeing Paul Tudor Jones and the other early Bitcoin believers thinking maybe it's time for me to double or triple my allocation. Between you and me, I'm surprised they're not increasing their allocation by a factor of 10 because Bitcoin's 50 times better.
Hey, Michael, I just Googled the term Bitcoin maximalist, and a picture of you came up here. So you've been buying Bitcoin hand over fist, you're raising capital, you just went through. What about Ethereum? What about this move towards proof of stake that we should see this summer? I mean, are you thinking about diversification? Is there room in the Microstrategy's Bitcoin strategy for Ethereum in proof of stake?
Yeah, let's talk about the crypto universe. You've got digital property, and Bitcoin is the highest, most dominant digital property network. Think of it as like granite blocks in Manhattan, in cyber Manhattan. Then you've got digital currency. That's like Tether and stable coins. They want to be money markets in cyberspace. And so they'll be like the CBDC dollars. And then you've got digital applications like Ethereum. Ethereum wants to dematerialize the JP Morgan building and the banking establishment and all of the exchanges. There's a place for all of these things properly understood. And you're going to want to build your buildings on a solid footing of granite. So Bitcoin is meant to last forever, high integrity, very durable. Ethereum is trying to dematerialize exchanges and the finance establishment. I think that as the market starts to understand these things, there's a place for everybody.
Michael, I want to end by asking you, I mean, you've given us a really good playbook for why it makes sense to buy Bitcoin. So if I'm an investor and I've got money to put to work, why would I buy a share of Microstrategy? Why wouldn't I just buy Bitcoin?
Well, Microstrategy's got the ability to sweep our software cash flows into Bitcoin. So we're an operating company that reinvests in Bitcoin. We also have the ability to raise debt financing. So we were able to borrow $1 billion at 0% interest and buy Bitcoin. And so your ETF won't be able to borrow billions of dollars at low interest rates and leverage up. And so to the extent that the investors feel the management team knows how to manage leverage and manage the core business, then we should get a premium against an ETF. And to the extent that they don't, we'll get a discount. So we have to stay on our toes.
Michael Saylor, thank you for joining us, CEO of Microstrategy. All right, let's go around the horn on this one if we can and trade it. Karen, I want to get you back in here, and you asked Michael a good question. Did he answer anything that makes you a little bit more clear on his strategy? Would you be a buyer of Microstrategy, or like I asked right at the end, just go right into Bitcoin?
Right, that's sort of what I'm wondering. I mean, he's proven to be a very, very nimble, great Bitcoin trader, right? Which, I mean, but he's a long-term believer for sure. So I still come back to your question though, because you don't have this pure play. You don't need to buy a Bitcoin ETF. One could just buy Bitcoin and continue to buy Bitcoin if one wanted to. But I mean, good for him he's managed the markets masterfully. I would just, for me, I'd rather have Bitcoin.
Tim, I'm going to give you the last word on this one. What do you make of what Mr. Saylor had to say?
Well, good for, look, it sounds like he wants to be a Bitcoin ETF. What's interesting is if you follow the stock, the correlation, I think as Bitcoin pulled back 50, his stock pulled back 51. And I think the rally off the bottom is something like 35. I think he's rallied 34 through yesterday, last chart I looked at. I do think it's impressive if you think about, like, he hasn't just raised this money from the retail community or people that are just been at least most associated with Bitcoin. We also know that there's the institutional community. In fact, that's kind of his point, that Bitcoin is an institutional grade safe haven. And so when you're talking about secured debt, you're talking about a different type of an investor, and it's pretty clear that they're lining up for this. So that's really the capital markets story to me is as fascinating as any of it, because it's really telling you where there's plenty of interest out there for the asset class.